Welcome to Flavour Text, a podcast where we examine the intersection between lore, story, and gameplay in Arkham Horror the card game. I'm CrabbyTerror8, and I'm joined as usual by my phronetic co-host, Kevling. How are you, Kevling?
What was that? Phronetic?
Phronetic,
I
yes.
thought you were saying frenetic.
Yeah,
Or
yes,
phonetic?
exactly. Phronetic, Phronetic.
I have never heard that word before. Go on, what's
Me
the
neither.
insult?
It means practically wise.
That's definitely not me then.
Well, I think you're pretty frenetic, Kevling. So you're frenetically frenetic. There you go. How's that?
There you go. Right, I'll take that, I suppose. Yeah.
How have you been, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Not bad. What I've been doing. I know we talk about video games later, but I've just discovered a video game that I'd forgotten existed, and I'm very excited to be playing it because I'm a big Fallout fan, and
yes.
I didn't realize there was a game called The Outer Worlds.
By
I'd forgotten about it.
Same team, isn't it? Yes.
Obsidian, who
Or
did
by-
the
yeah, the
favorite
former
of
team,
mine,
yes.
the Fallout New Vegas, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a Fallout New Vegas Fallout game in inverted commas set in space. And I've just started playing it, and it is absolutely Fallout in space. It's just, if you love Fallout, it's just like, this is fantastic. And particularly it's New Vegas-y in its sort of style, so much more RPG than just running around shooting things.
I have a very patchy history with the Fallout games in that I buy them, I start them, I probably do about 2 hours, and I never touch them again for some reason. I don't know why, they just don't grab me. I remember playing Fallout 4 and building a massive tower as my base in that very little village that you first start off with, and went down the road to the next place and thought, no, I'm not playing anymore, don't like it. No, I don't mean it like that, but not that I don't like it, but yeah, I don't know what it is with open world games. I like to stay in the bits I'm familiar with rather than go off into the complete unknown. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm sure, I think I've got a copy of Outer Worlds somewhere. I'm sure it came up on Prime or as a freebie on an Epic Game Store or something. So I'll fire it up and give it a go.
Bizarrely, there was a game released in the same year called The Outer Wilds, which is completely different. Like, what are the odds? And I think that's also a good game, but I think people got confused between the two because they're both space games, but they're very different in style, I think.
I don't know if my memory is playing tricks on me, but there's an Amazon Prime video about a series about to start. It's like an anthology episodic thing where each episode is based in a different world, and it's all based on video games.
Oh, right.
And I think there's one based on the Outer Worlds, but I might be wrong on that.
Oh, okay.
There's one of them's. I think one of them's got God of War. One of them's Warhammer 40k.
Right.
I think it's out next week or something like that.
Okay.
It's the same people that did. I've forgotten what it's called now. There was another sort of anthology series. Love, Death and Robots or something like that.
Right.
And it's all CGI, but it's all like top-notch stuff. But comically, one of the episodes is based on Concord. I don't know if you heard about that Sony game that this years in development, cost £200 million, and literally 1 week after the release, they shut it down, closed the studio, erased the game from everyone's hard drives, refunded everyone who'd ever bought it.
Oh my goodness!
So this massive game lasted 1 week, and now there's a TV episode based on it. You can guess that they were expecting that to be coming out in a slightly different world. Where it's a big hit and everyone's playing it, but no, it's tumbleweeds rolling across the screen sort of thing.
Oh, well, with a name like Concord, you would have thought it would be very successful. Did you see the Fallout TV show
I
that
think
came
we've
out?
watched about half of it. It's one of these ones that we watch with the kids. I say kids, they're both adults now, but
Yeah.
we've not managed to reconvene to carry on with it all at the same time, if that makes sense. So
Yes,
we will
that
go back to
absolutely
it.
makes sense.
Really enjoyed
Yes.
the bit I've seen. I think I've probably only seen 2 or 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, did you enjoy it?
I did, and it's a pretty good dramatization of Fallout 3-ish so far. Yeah, no, I think they did a really. I don't know. It seemed to have. There was a time 20 years ago where video game movies and TV things were pretty terrible, but I think studios have gotten better at sort of bringing them to life.
Yes, this last few years in particular with The Last of Us, Fallout,
Yes.
a few of these others. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, some good stuff there. So, yes. So I was just playing the Outer Worlds, and yeah, I was just very excited about it. So I thought I'd jump in and say something about it. What about
Excellent.
Arkham, Kevlin? Have you been doing any Arkham? You were doing
No,
Forgotten
no.
Age, weren't you?
We've our group is reconvening this Friday to play well, I think I've said before, we started Return to the Forgotten Age, but
Yep.
we only played like about half an hour and had to be called off due to a family emergency.
Yes.
So we've been struggling to reconvene. So we're actually reconvening this Friday, the 13th. So what could possibly go wrong?
Perfect.
yeah,
Actually, that's perfect for a horror thing.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So yeah, I've not been playing any Arkham. My copy of The Last of Us turned up, so if anybody watched the playthrough video, you'll see that on screen. Yeah, so that came a couple of weeks ago. I've played it a couple of times, really enjoyed it. Lots of comments and talk online about people going, well, I've tried it, I bought it, I've tried it, it's not for me, I'm selling it. But I think basically it's probably people who just went, oh, it's The Last of Us, I will love it, rather than paying any attention to what sort of game it was.
Yeah.
Because if you've played Escape the Dark Castle or Escape the Dark Sector, it is an evolution of that game. So if you're not going to like that game, you're not going to like just lots of random dice chucking, then it's not for you. But if you like those games, which I do, I've got both of them on my shelf over there, then you'll like this. It really is an evolution of that that genre, I suppose, mini genre, subgenre. So basically, the game plays out. There's large oversized cards, each of which is a situation you need to deal with. It might be positive, it might be negative, and you basically work through this deck of cards until you get to the boss at the end. That's how Escape the Dark Castle and Escape the Dark Sector worked. And the bosses are randomised, so it's different each time. You don't use all of the cards, so you never know quite what you've got to face before you reach the boss. Escape the Dark Sector started adding in weapons and ammo, and then Last of Us Escape the Dark has actually split the map out into, so there's 5 different locations now, and each one will have a deck of things and a random event at the end. There's threat builds at each of those locations, so the longer you take, the more difficult the locations are going to be to deal with. And you basically got to get to Jackson at the end and then face a final boss, of which there are 3 different ones at the end of that deck. So yeah, it's really good. I like it, but like I say, it's mixed opinions online. People are very hot and cold on it. Obviously, the ones who knew what they were expecting are loving it, and the ones that just thought they were getting a tabletop miniatures game or something are quite disappointed. So. And loads of people going, oh, I hate the art style. Why have they done it all in black and white?
Yeah.
All of their games are black and white, hand-drawn.
Yes.
They're all exactly the same in that respect. But yeah, I like it anyway. And we're playing it at our board game group this week as well.
Right. Sounds like, so it's sort of like a more complex iteration of your choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Essentially, right?
Yeah, that's how the original games were sort of advertised. It's like Escape. You've got a deck of cards instead of a book.
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, it's even less than a choose your own adventure in that there's no branching narrative, which you literally go, right, I do this card, let's see what happens. Now we'll move on to the next card, let's see what happens. The only decision is you have to decide who is revealing the card, because sometimes there's an effect on the person who's going first. So, right, you've got to deal with this one on your own. Right, or you instantly take 2 damage or something like that.
Right. Interesting.
But it's all, there's a lot of random elements, which is obviously, I think that puts a lot of people off sometimes if it's just total randomness.
Yeah. But I remember Dark Souls, the board game, it's one of its biggest issues was that it was too much like the video game.
Yeah.
Where in the video game you're constantly dying and trying again. That kind of works in a video game, but it does not work very well in a board game. You know what I mean? So you can have the opposite problem where something's too faithful to whatever it's based on, and that people had a lot of criticism about that as well because it didn't kind of work very well. So. Interesting, isn't it? You can't please everybody, I suppose.
And right, you already talked about video games, so you're playing The Outer Worlds now. I almost said Wilds then. I had to stop and check myself as I was halfway through saying the game name.
Yeah, I'm still playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and I'm... board game wise, I managed to beat one of the hardest, Final Girl. There is one VHS box, Akanyambe, I think it is.
Oh, yes.
Is very, very difficult. I think I tried it 8 times or something. And it's really, I got very frustrated with it. Now, obviously went on Reddit. What I realized is you have to use a completely different strategy to kill that particular monster.
Is that a series 1?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
I was going to say I haven't got that one.
Yeah. So it's so that was so once I did that, I was fine. I managed to defeat that. So I'm now doing Geppetto and the Circus of Blood, I think it is. So nice. Geppetto's like a puppet master or something. So that's the next one.
I love the way they sort of reinterpret existing stories and put their own spin on it.
Exactly. So that's what I've been up to. So, and still playing our team of foot, our foot team. We're all 5 foot. We're just at the final scenario of Innsmouth Conspiracy. So nice. We were going to play it next week, but we're going to have to postpone that to the week after. So the week just before Christmas to finish that one off. So that's been really good doing that one. So enjoying that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have I actually been playing? I bought in the Steam sale last week. I bought 2 Point Campus on PC. So I've been playing that in your old sort of theme hospital style. Business management sort of sim with little comedy characters all running around in the university, and you're trying to run the university and put classes on at the right times and have the right types of teachers and janitors and things like that. But yes.
That sounds like fun.
Yes, they did.
Sounds great.
Their first one was called 2 Point Hospital, which obviously would be a lot more like Theme Hospital, but it wasn't Steam Deck verified. It had some issues, I think, on the Steam Deck, so I'll go for the second one because that had the green tick. Right. Not that the green tick means anything anymore, but yeah. But I play most of my PC games on the Steam Deck, and if it's a low enough spec, I can get away with playing it on this laptop as well. So, but board game wise, I think we've already touched on it. Played a couple of games of The Last of Us. We've not quite managed our Arkham Horror reconvening yet. I think that's about it, really. And feel free to skip this if you're particularly squeamish, but we're Arkham Horror players, so we should be used to squeamish stories, shouldn't we? Yeah, my cat got in a fight the other day, and his face just sort of swelled up like a balloon. And then yesterday morning it popped. So I got up yesterday. I woke up like 8:30 yesterday morning. My wife was shaking me away. I've got to go to work. The cat is bleeding all over the stairs. Okay. So that was a nice awakening yesterday. But now he's fine. He's a lot better now. A lot happier in himself now that his swelling's gone down.
Yes. On the antibiotics and all that.
Yeah. Took him to the vets in the week. He's on antibiotics, which was fun trying to get those down a cat. But we've got a method now. Yes, he's gone from having a face like a balloon and his eyes sort of half closed to actually looking normal now.
Oh, so, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I had a little bit of Arkham Horror this week.
I saw, speaking of things horrific, I saw a horror movie called The Substance, which was fantastic if you like body horror.
Okay.
It's got Demi Moore in it, of all people.
Right.
And it's by a French director, and it's all about sort of the horrific impact of sort of impossible beauty standards.
Oh,
I won't
this
go
is
into
quite
what's
new,
happened.
isn't it?
It's quite
I saw
new.
her on a chat show recently talking about
Yes.
it. So yes,
That's right. Yes, I think it's probably one of the best performances she's ever given.
isn't there
And
another character
interesting-
playing a younger version of herself? Or
That's
something?
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is
so
the one I'm thinking
that's
of.
what
then, yeah.
happens. Yes. And the best way to think about it is it's like a supercharged, more horrific version of a Black Mirror episode. It actually plays out like a Black Mirror episode.
Interesting.
So it's definitely worth watching, but not for the squeamish. It's like I said, it's body horror. So if you
Okay.
don't like David Cronenberg and that kind of stuff,
Right.
or the Elephant Man or anything like that, you're not going to like this. But if you like Black Mirror and you like things where, the future, how could this possibly go wrong? And it goes wrong, then this is this absolutely one worth watching. So,
Excellent.
yes. There we go. All right, Kevling, where are we on this many and varied adventure called the Circle Undone?
Yes. Well, we're heading to an island that you can never get the name right of, aren't we? Yes.
Yes, is it the Unvisited Isle or the Uninvited Isle?
Is
One
the
of those
Unvisited
two.
Isle. Yeah, so if you caught the last episode, you'll hear CrabbyTerror8 saying uninvited about 37 times. And I waited till the very end to correct him.
Yeah, well, people aren't. Well, they are kind of invited, aren't they? It is kind of an invited or uninvited isle, anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, that's where we're. So we sort of infiltrated or were part of the Silver Twilight Lodge previously, right? And then they're all running off to the Unvisited Isle for some kind of ritual or something, and that's where we kind of. This is one of the few instances, actually, I think, where we kind of know at the end of a scenario where we're going next, right? This is like most of the
Especially in
time
this,
we'll do these scenarios, we don't know what the hell's going to happen next, but in this one we actually know where we're going next, which makes it a bit unusual in this campaign.
Yes. We've not got the old I'm looking in newspaper. Oh, let's go to the graveyard in this one. Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arkham Advertiser says, strange goings on at the Unvisited Isle. Maybe we should check that out. Yes, exactly. It's not like that for this one. We've actually got a reason to go there this time.
Yes.
So, yes.
Excellent. So, shall we start with reading? Excuse me. Shall we start with reading the introduction?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Shall I start with that then?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah. Scenario 6: Union and Disillusion. The unvisited isle lies in the midst of the Miskatonic River, in between two of the bridges that span the river and connect the downtown and Rivertown neighbourhoods of Arkham. Overgrown with vines, thorns, and unnatural underbrush, the island is home to no residents and very few fauna. Rows of mysterious stone pillars stand sentry throughout the island, rising high above the treetops. Though many theories abound, none know for sure what purpose these stone pillars serve or who built them. Very few dare to venture onto the shores of the enigmatic island, and those who do return with strange tales. Bonfires in the woods at the darkest hours of night, stone altars with deep carvings impossible to translate, empty woods devoid of life save for the stark black ravens and whippoorwills who perch on the tree branches and watch trespassers with eager eyes. Unfortunately for you, the stakes are too high for you to heed these many warnings. The streets of Arkham are emptier and quieter than you have ever seen them before. A familiar grey mist has enveloped the town. The haze grows denser and thicker the closer you get to the river. You move with haste, not wanting to encounter any others on your way to the site of the ritual, whether they be living or dead. You find several rowboats moored by the docks and climb aboard one of them. With the waters unnaturally still and barely any current carrying the boat, rowing toward the island should be a simple endeavour. Even so, the dense fog makes it difficult for you to get your bearings. Soon you are completely enclosed by the grey mist, unable to see the banks of the river or the coast of the island. Shapes emerge from the fog, ripples appear on the surface of the water. The gaze of the watcher is upon you. Just then, a pillar of spectral energy ascends into the sky, clear as day, even through the haze. The shapes all turn their attention to this beacon, and you sense the watcher's gaze slipping from your soul. The rite has begun. You row faster, using the light to guide you. It is time to decide once and for all, why have you come? Are you here to aid the Silver Twilight Lodge, or to disrupt them? There we go, that's the introductory blurb. So now we've got a major decision to make, haven't we? So over the past few scenarios, we've been able to sort of either side with the lodge or be against them, or pretend to side with the lodge. But now we've got to make a final decision that basically will override any of those previous decisions we've made.
Yes, that's right.
As it says, this is a point of no return. You will not get the chance to change your mind. The investigators must choose one. We have to help complete the lodge's ritual, which will bind the spectral watcher and prevent it from doing more harm. Or we have to stop the lodge's ritual, and disrupting it should release the watcher's tether to the mortal realm. And so the outcome of that is we record that we either sided with the lodge or we sided with the coven, depending on which of those two decisions we make.
What do you think about that, Kevling? This sort of binary choice that we have at this stage.
Yeah, it feels a little odd. I suppose maybe you could have said, I'm siding with the lodge, and it's only maybe on the most recent scenario that you thought, actually, I think I've made the wrong decision here. These are the bad guys.
Yeah.
So at least it gives you a chance rather than locking you in based on your previous scenarios. But it does feel a little odd that you could go, lodge, 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 lodge. No, witches.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just change your mind at the last moment. Yeah. It is really odd that you suddenly, after all that's been going on. The other thing is, why would you side with the Coven? I think the problem with this campaign is it's not really made a case for why you should side with the Coven anyway. You know what I mean? You barely spend any time with the Coven. When
it's
you
more
do
that
spend time,
you're just not siding with the lodge, isn't it? Rather than you're siding with the Coven.
Exactly. And whenever you interact with the Coven, it's always negative. So it would be really weird that you would suddenly side with the Coven. Like you say, it's more likely that you would go, I'm sticking with the lodge, or, oh no, this is all getting a bit much. I'm sort of backing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this siding with the Coven thing just doesn't kind of make sense because there's not really been enough to give you a reason why you would side with the Coven.
No.
You know, unless I've missed something, and I'm pretty sure I haven't. It's like the witches, like you barely know them, and whenever we've interacted with them, it's not been very positive. So why would you side with them? You know what I mean? It's really weird. I mean, the one thing it does foreshadow is that neither of these choices feel particularly positive, do they? One's like, will bind the spectral watcher. Oh, I suppose that's quite positive, actually. So staying with the lodge sounds good, doesn't it? Because you're binding the spectral watcher isn't great, nasty individual. So you're going to bind it and prevent it from doing any more harm, which seems on the surface a great idea. Whereas if you go with the Coven, you are releasing the spectral watcher's tether to the mortal realm, which doesn't sound great.
I don't know. I suppose you could interpret that as a positive, though. If you're releasing the watcher's tether, he's no longer going to be stuck here. He can just go off.
Okay.
He can go off to wherever he wants to go to. He's no longer
Right.
trapped here in our realm. So I guess both of them, it's a way of freeing us from
They're
the
both
Watcher.
Right.
But
They're
which
both sort of
tactic do you
positive.
take?
Yeah.
Trap him
I
or
just
free
find
him?
it, unless, yeah, I just think that unless you know this campaign, I think the chances of you signing with the Coven is vanishingly small. You know what I mean? Because unless, like you say, you're like very worried about. But then again, why would you be worried about binding the Spectral Watcher and preventing it from doing any more harm? I mean, it says that, right? So it's like, it's really kind of funneling you down a Silver Twilight Lodge path in a way. So, yeah, it's kind of
I mean,
curious.
there are some bits and bobs that you find out about the creature on the previous interlude, aren't there? If you make it to that Inner Circle interlude, you have that conversation with Carl Sanford. So yeah, he says, like, what do you want with the creature? First and foremost, we need to bind it to prevent it from doing further harm. We may be able to then learn its secrets without endangering ourselves or others.
Yeah.
But
And
the chances of there's six or seven paragraphs there, and you can only ask 3 of them. So the chances of you actually, first of all, you've got to actually make it to the Inner Circle to have that conversation, which we'll touch on later how that happens, and then you won't get all of the information anyway.
No, and the key piece of information is the fact that the Spectral Watcher is Keziah Mason. So that's the kind of the key bombshell thing, because you don't know that. Sorry?
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, so he says on, this is like you say, this is the information. So it says, what is the creature? It's a powerful remnant left behind, one who perished long ago. The witch is going to say, it could only be one person, Keziah Mason herself. Yeah, and it, you know what? And that's the problem with this campaign. It's a small thing, but actually it's a really big thing. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the Spectral Watcher.
That's the key, isn't it? As to why the witches want to free the Watcher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if you don't know the kind of the lore behind this, and because I mean there is stuff about Keziah Mason, it could easily get lost in the, like a lot of things in this campaign can kind of get lost in the sort of complexity of it. So, yes, it's kind of weird they keep calling it the Spectral Watcher. You'd think because you won't necessarily know that information. That's why they have to keep doing that, because if you don't get that extra information,
if you're not had that
you won't know it's Keziah Mason.
We must bind Keziah Mason. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so anyway, so yes, you're right. So we're either with the Lodge or we're with the Coven. You know, at this stage.
Yeah, so I guess I suppose it's touching back on what we were just saying. What you learn from that conversation, if you've made it to the Inner Circle, might make you go, actually, if that is Keziah Mason, I don't agree with this binding. I think I'm going to have to side with the witches. Let's get her freed. Yeah, so I suppose it's giving you that opportunity to change your approach based on what you've learned.
Yeah,
but
maybe
if you didn't even make it to that section to have that conversation, you wouldn't even know that there was. And you think, why am I making this decision now? Why am I going to change my mind?
Exactly. That's and you know what? The first time you play through, the likelihood is you're not going to know, because you'll have been because this campaign is particularly strong at kind of keeping information away from you if you don't kind of succeed. So you'd be like, what? Why would I? So yes, it's just a little bit overly complicated and just a little bit kind of curious, I think.
I think that's a good way of summing up this campaign, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so then we move on to the setup then. So the first few bits are just fairly straightforward. Get these cards, set these encounter sets aside, put some locations out. There are 6 unvisited locations and 2 at random get put out. The rest get set aside. And then the first impact of our decision is if we sided with the Coven, then the braziers at Forbidding Shore and Uninvited. I'm doing it now. The Unvisited Isle are already lit, so you put a resource token on them to signify this.
Yes.
And there's a whole section on that explains a token means it's lit, no token means it's not lit. You can't unlight an unlit one, and you can't light a lit one.
No, exactly.
Yeah. A few other things get set aside. And then I guess it circles back to the prologue. So we have to check the missing persons to see what happened to the four hapless characters at the beginning in the prologue. So if any of them are crossed off, then we put their story card beneath the scenario reference card, and we set their asset aside. Otherwise, we take them out of the game. So basically, it's basically whoever we played in the prologue, there's a chance of finding out a bit more about their story.
A bit more about them. Yeah. So they're just sort of popping up again, which feels a bit, I don't know, just sort of a bit tacked on. But anyway, it's there.
Yeah. And then we get onto the complicated bit, don't we? Act 3 and 4. So we get a different Act 3 and 4 depending on our decisions. The simplest one is if we sided with the Lodge, we get Act 3, Beyond the Mist, and Act 4, The Binding Right.
Yep.
But if we sided with the Coven, there's 3 different Act 3s we could end up with. So the first option is... the first decision point... No, it's not a decision point. The first outcome is...
Yes.
If we sided with the Coven... So that's the decision we've just made. If we are deceiving the Lodge, which that decision we made back in Interlude 2, which is where we could decide that we were siding with the Lodge, but we were lying to them.
Yes.
And we were inducted into the Inner Circle. And so that was the Interlude 3 that just happened. Now, Interlude 2 and Interlude 3 only happen if you get a specific outcome in a specific scenario.
Oh my goodness.
So, at Death's Doorstep, so that's the one where we were in the house, and in Act 3, all of the Silver Twilight Lodge enemies are all running towards the door at the end, and we're trying to resign with them. If you reach Act 3, then that's what triggers... Interlude 2, so we actually get to be able to deceive the Lodge, because we meet Carl Sanford, then we have the conversation with him, and then we can choose whether to side with him, not side with him, or pretend to side with him. But if you don't reach Act 3 in that scenario, you never meet him, and so you don't have that conversation. So this section is not available to you.
So this is like sided with the Coven. Well, almost like we're undercover. We've pretended to be, part of the Lodge, but not really.
Yes,
basically,
yeah. And then the other half of that decision, we were inducted into the Inner Circle. That only happens if we've just been through the Inner Circle interlude, which is directly preceding this one.
Yep.
And you have to reach resolution 1 of For the Greater Good. So that is, we opened the puzzle box and we were members of the Lodge. So then we can get inducted into the Inner Circle, and then have those conversations we were just talking about, where you can find out more about what's going on. So it kind of feels, from a narrative point of view, I think that is probably the canonical approach. Because we'll touch on what happens on the reverse side of these acts later as we reveal them, but basically this is the best one.
Yes.
But
this is the best
we'll cover that later.
It's almost like we're playing both sides against the middle with this one.
We'll pretend to go with them so we can find out what's going on and use it to our advantage.
And
so
and
that
this
gives
one
us
uses...
the version 2 of Act 3. And all 3 of these all take us to the Broken Right version of Act 4.
Right.
Which is, so obviously we're trying to break the tether to release the Watcher.
Right, rather than bind.
So the next option is, so if the above is not true, so we weren't faking it, or we weren't faking it and in the Inner Circle, So this one is at least 2 of the following are true. We are deceiving the lodge, we hid our knowledge of the coven, or we kept the mementos hidden. So again, they're all part of the... where's my notes? Sorry. So if we're deceiving the lodge, that's back in interlude 2 again, and then hiding the knowledge of the coven and keeping the mementos hidden again, that's part of the inner circle conversation again. So both of these first 2 options, you need to be in the lodge, but you need to be deceiving them. And so there's just sort of 2 different aspects of how well we deceive them effectively. So that gives us version 3 of Act 3. And we get the broken right version of Act 4. And then the final one is, if none of the above, and we're sided with the coven, then we use Beyond the Mist version 4 and Act 4, the broken right.
Right.
So that's basically the catch out. So effectively, if we didn't make it to the inner circle, it's either the first one or the last one. The middle 2 are just variations of us getting to the inner circle and then how we behaved with the lodge.
Correct.
And it's a way of branching the narrative slightly and changing the outcome slightly. But we'll touch on that when we go through the actual acts later.
Yeah, I can now see why they went for that binary choice, just to simplify these outcomes. Otherwise, you can imagine the whiteboard meeting trying to work out all the options. So, it feels overcooked, though, I have to say.
It is a bit complicated.
Yeah, like unnecessarily complicated, you would think. But anyway.
But yeah, I was going back and forwards through the book last night going, but if you to do that, you must have done this, and then to do that, you must have done this, and you sort of to try and chain it back to how you can be in each of these 4 situations.
I think the problem for me with the second and the third one, like I get the first one and the last one, but narratively, the second and the third one, I'm trying to work out in my mind, you know what I mean? It's not clear
what the difference is.
Have you been more and more deceptive with each? You know, is 2 less deceptive than 3? So 3 is the most deceptive of the, you know what I mean? It's hard to kind of pass out just kind of how your behavior is different as a consequence of hiding the memento. You know what I mean? It's just very difficult to say, okay, I did these behaviors, therefore this is going to make a difference. You know, it's quite difficult to work that through. So, yeah.
It's so effectively, I mean, I'm going to spoil my own narrative here, but yes, effectively those middle 2, the first one, you sided with the coven, you're deceiving the lodge, but you got into the inner circle. Yep. The outcome of that one is called loyalty is earned. So it's like you've successfully deceived the lodge.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas the second one, we sided with the coven and we're deceiving the lodge, we hid the knowledge, or we kept the mementos hidden. That one is called true colours. So it's like they suss you out. You've not fully deceived them, and so there's a slightly different outcome there.
Right.
And then the last one is literally called against the lodge when you turn it. So it's different flavours of being on the side of the lodge or against the lodge, based on how you've played the campaign up to this point.
And version 1 has got against the witches, so that's okay. That makes more sense. Okay, so those little terms that probably nobody ever reads down the side.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually they're the key as to what's actually going on. What's the impact of your decision?
Yeah, well, there you go. There we go, listeners. It's worthwhile reading the little words down the side of the B versions of the acts and indeed the agendas, because they do give you some extra information. And in this case, it's very good information, because that makes a lot of sense now, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then just to add icing on the cake, if for each heretic that was unleashed into Arkham, You've got to put a doom on Agenda 1A. So I think we started with 4 dooms.
Yeah,
didn't
all
we?
4 heretics escaped in our playthrough, so we started very negatively, didn't we?
I think that this Circle Undone, I'm going to say it again, it was inspired by Ghostbusters. Yeah, absolutely. The heretics swooping through the town, scaring people, sliming them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we get a paragraph explaining the braziers, and each of those brazier locations has a circle action, and it's just explaining the mechanics of how that works, because some of them combine 2 different skill icons into a single test with some quite high skill test numbers, aren't there, we found?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, if you were playing this true solo and you just happen to have a very low score for one combination, you could be
you're not going to
pretty
light
stuffed,
or
actually.
unlight all 4 braziers, are you?
Yes. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So there we go.
So, I think that covered all of the setup, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yep. So, okay. Speaking of the act and the agenda, shall I take us through the act and the agenda?
Yeah, sure.
So the agenda 1A is called The Lovers 6, which ominously the lovers are 2 skeletons bound together. This is quite prescient, really. You are at a crossroads. Reflect on the choices you've made. You shall be confronted with a terrible dilemma. So it's kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen, really.
Although ideally, that would probably work better if you read the agenda before the setup. Actually telling you that after you've made the decision.
Yeah, so true, so true. And then the Act 1A shows the unvisited isle.
Yeah, you got it right.
This reminds me a little bit of the, was it the, in Carcosa, the Mont Saint-Michel scenario where you're sort of running into an island and there's sort of, energy from the sky and carrying on. It's a bit like that, isn't it? There's this sort of a picture of an island with sort of an energy thing from the sky. And it says, the foggy shores of the unvisited isle are barren and unwelcoming. Not a soul greets you as you draw closer to the island, save for the judging gaze of ghostly birds that observe you from the trees. In the distance, the pillar of spectral energy is rising into the clouds, a vortex of otherworldly mist spiraling about it. And I should have said it was 8. The threshold was 8 for the agenda, and this is 3 clues per investigator for this one. I notice, Kevling, the thing that's missing from this first act is the wizened, one-eyed sailor who you have to bribe to, take you out to the isle, and then turns around and leaves as quickly as he can, kind of thing. Yeah.
And then in terms of locations, we start off with the Miskatonic River and the Forbidding Shore, and then 2 random unvisited isle locations being out, don't we? And depending on how we've sided in the setup will determine whether the braziers are already lit or already unlit. So, yes, if we need to light the braziers, they'll be unlit. If we need to unlight the braziers, they'll be lit. So whatever the opposite is of what you need to do, that's how things are. So
the layout's pretty simple, isn't it? Really, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 locations, isn't it? I got that right?
Yeah. For now.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the Miskatonic River then, which is where we will start. The flavour text is: your boat sways gently along the current of the rippling water. The river is deep and dark, and you find yourself suddenly wondering how many bodies might lie forgotten along the riverbed, never to be seen again. And the artwork oddly shows an empty rowboat crossing the river. But never mind.
I guess you've gotten out.
Yeah,
you've taken the photo after you've gotten out of the boat.
Yes, good point. Just The way the water's splashing around, it makes it look like it's in motion to me. But it is
Yeah,
very
it does,
dark. You can't
actually.
really see it very well, can you? So yeah, on the revealed side, it's got 5 shroud, but no clues. And as an action, we can resign. We can take the rowboat back to the shore of the Miskatonic River, leaving the mysterious island behind. Despite the urgency of your task, you find yourself rowing quietly, as though trying to avoid disturbing the river.
It's pretty close to Ark. I notice on the right-hand side there's like a tentacle going round a pole or something. There you go. Very nice. Okay. The other one is, so that's the Miskatonic River, and then there's the Forbidding Shore, which they don't seem to quite line up, these two pictures, do they? But anyway,
No.
or maybe they do. As you land on the shore of the island, a flock of birds chatter from the treetops, admonishing you and your trespass. You intrude nonetheless, ignoring the many warnings and indicators that you should turn away. And if you turn this one over, it's a 3 shroud, 1 clue per investigator location. It's wood traded, and it has an action, circle, test, willpower or intellect 3 to find the brazier by the wooded trail. If you succeed, you may light or unlight the brazier, and that's an easy test, as we will see moving forward. And it has a haunted effect as well. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, it lulls you in with a false sense of security.
Yes.
Let's have your first circle test be nice and easy. Do a 3 and you can choose which skill. It's fine.
Yes, and it has a haunted effect as well, which is, classic for this campaign. You must either lose 1 action or lose 2 resources. So that's the Forbidding Shore.
Yeah, and then we'll have 2 of the Unvisited Isle locations out, but the reverse of them all basically says spectral mist blocks the way. Check the campaign log. So if we sided with the lodge, we can't enter this location unless the brazier at the Forbidden Shore is lit. And then it's the opposite. If we sided with the Coven, you cannot enter this location unless it is unlit. So whichever of those objectives we need to achieve, the game setup is the opposite. So if we need them lit, the braziers will already be unlit. If we need them unlit, they will already be lit. So we've got to do that circle test at the Forbidding Shore to then be able to move on into the Unvisited Isle locations.
Yeah. And I mean, it's only a test of 3. There's only 1 clue per investigator here, so obviously you need to get to the other locations to get through the first act. Okay. So yeah. So hopefully, even in true solo, you can do a willpower or an intellect test of 3.
Yes. At least you can, and if you're weak on one of them, at least the chances are you'll be good at the other, unless you've got a really unlucky choice of investigator.
Yeah, exactly. You're Calvin, and you've managed to avoid any horror or damage so far. Yay!
You're Preston, and you've run out of money.
Preston run out of money. That's right. So should we go through these uninvited isle locations? Like you said, there'll only be 2, so they'll always be a bit different.
Yes, because the threshold is 8, so we've got plenty of turns to actually start this off. So so we've got to find 3 clues, but at the moment we can only 3 clues per investigator. At the moment we can only find 1, so we've got to venture forth into these Unvisited Isle locations to find the rest of the clues.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I'll take the first one I've got is Standing Stones. Shroud of 3, 2 clues per investigator. It's classed as woods, which I think all of these are. And as an action, circle, test, willpower and intellect of 10. So this is our first combined test, or at least in the order that we're looking at them. And 10 is quite high. So you do that test to examine the brazier in front of the standing stone, and if you succeed, you may light or unlight it. And the haunted ability on this location is until the end of the round, increase the difficulty of each test during a circle action by 2. Ouch.
Yeah. Yes. So that's that one, Standing Stones. Next one I have here is the Misty Clearing, which is sort of closer to a Standing Stone. Now this is, and that was a victory 1, and this one's a victory 1 as well.
Thank you.
It's only a shroud of 1, this one though, and it's got 2 clues per investigator, so this is a good one to get from that perspective. But this has, the circle test for this one is a willpower and a foot of 11, so it's a little bit higher. And again, that allows you to light or unlight the brazier. The haunted effect is you must either place 1 doom on this location or take 1 damage and horror. So it's easier. You're unlikely to get the haunted thing, right? Because it's only a 1 shroud. So you'd have to be. It's probably more likely going to be an auto fail effect that would do that. Pretty nasty effect, though. There you go.
Definitely. And interesting how they seem to be wording the test around the double skill test that you're having to do. So that's willpower and agility to traverse the mist surrounding the brazier. So you're sort of having to, it's a bit of a challenge. You've got to use your agility. Yeah. The first one was willpower and intellect to examine the brazier. So I suppose you've got to be determined and understand what you're looking at, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's a nice little touch, isn't it, to have that, instead of just sort of standard text for each one.
Yeah. So the next one I have is moss-covered steps, shroud of 4, 2 clues per investigator, and the circle action on this one is test combat and evade of 10 to explore the mossy steps. So yes, I suppose you're sort of running around using your agility and combat skills to uncover things. If you succeed, you may light or unlight the brazier, and the haunted effect is your next move action this round costs an additional action, and also victory 1.
Yep. I guess it's hard to get round those mossy steps.
Yes, yeah.
The next one I have here is the Decayed Willow, which looks very ominous.
It is, isn't it? Sort of, quite like that bit of art.
Yeah, this is a dark, blasted forest with this sort of willow in the middle. This is 4 shroud, 2 clues per investigator. This has the circle test intellect and fight of combat of 9 to find the brazier inside the decaying tree. So you've sort of got to fight your way through the tree to find it. 2 clues per investigator. Haunted, choose and discard 1 card from your hand, and again, victory 1. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, next one I have is Forsaken Woods. Again, similar colour scheme to that previous one. In fact, it's the same artist, so that kind of explains it.
Oh, yeah.
So, 2 shroud, 2 clues per investigator, and this circle test is willpower and combat of 11 to clear a path through the woods. If you succeed, you may light or unlight the brazier, and the haunted ability is you must either search the encounter deck and discard power for a whippoorwill and spawn it at this location, or the nearest whippoorwill attacks you. So interestingly, on that subject, is this the first time that we've seen enemies from another campaign reproduced in a different campaign? Because whippoorwills from Dunwich, weren't they?
Correct, they were.
Obviously, the way they structure the games, they can't insist that you own Dunwich to be able to play Circle Undone, so they've reproduced some of the enemies.
Yes, exactly. And the good old whippoorwills are those aloof hunters that give you -1 to all your skills.
And they follow you around, making you worse.
Yes, right. Exactly, they're a real pain. But easy to kill. But, it's a time tax, right, if you've got to waste time doing that. And the last one is the Haunted Spring, which is sort of a little pool of water next to a tree. Looks like there's a dead animal in there or something. Something with horns.
Like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's some bones as well.
Yeah. So it's a 2 shroud, 2 clues per investigator. This is a test of intellect and agility of 9 to reach the brazier in the center of the spring. Again, it's victory 1, and the haunted effect is you must either discard an asset you control or take a damage. So there we are. That's the lot.
Yeah, so we'll have 2 of those locations out. They've all got the same number of clues on, so that you're not at any sort of disadvantage depending on which one comes out, other than the difficulty of the tests on them. So we'll have enough clues by this point, I think. So shall we advance the act?
Now, I was just going to say, though, it is possible you could draw the decayed willow and the moss-covered steps with 4 shroud of each, which would be very unfortunate. Yes. Although that would be quite unfortunate if you got those 2, because the others are only shrouds of 2 and 1. So if you just happen to draw those 2, that would be a little bit unfortunate. On the flip side, of course, you could choose 2, 2 with a shroud of 2 or a 1 or something like that. So, yes.
Look at the draw, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah. So, sorry, you were saying it's likely we'd get through the act before the agenda flips.
Yeah, I think so, Yeah, because we'll have got 1 clue each on the Forbidden Shore before we even move into the Unvisited Isle locations.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you just read the last location, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll pick up the act then. So we flip the act. The mist returns. You venture deeper and deeper into the overgrown woods, a timid voice in the back of your mind urging you to flee this place and never return. The dark mist becomes so dense you can hardly see anything. You shout for any of your companions, but there is no response, just the sway of dying tree branches in the wind and the thump of your heart pounding in your chest. Each investigator must randomly choose one of the set-aside Unvisited Isle locations and put it into play in front of him or her. Immediately move to that location. Cannot be cancelled. If the investigator sided with the Coven, the brazier is already lit. Shuffle each of the story cards beneath the scenario reference card and deal 1 at random to each investigator until all of them have been dealt. In player order, resolve each of the story cards. Yeah. So basically, I guess this is symbolising that we've kind of got separated. We're lost in the woods, and we stumble across something to do with the prologue investigators.
Exactly. So it's sort of looping back to, was it in the very first, not the sort of prologue, but in the very first scenario with the witches and things, you get separated in the woods.
Yes.
It's a similar kind of thing, right? That happens here. Yeah.
So for each of the 4, then we'll have their story card to read.
Yep.
We've already been through the location, so we'll be randomly at one of those locations, separated from each other.
Yes.
So, do you want to pick a prologue investigator?
Yeah, sure. I've got Valentino's Fate here. And are the cards themselves the same? The player cards?
Are they what,
or are they
sorry?
Slightly different? The player cards, so there's Valentino, Rivas, Took You Long Enough. Are they the same as the originals in the prologue, or are they different in some way?
Well, they must be different to some degree, because they're ally cards here, aren't they?
Oh, yes, they are. I wonder if anything else about them is different. Yes, they are different. You're right. They are different because the ones in the prologue were, of course, like investigators.
Yes.
So, like, for example, Valentino Rivas in the original was, during a skill test you're performing, spend 2 resources, reduce the difficulty for this test by 1, Elder Sign effect, whereas now Valentino Rivas is... Valentino Rivas, you took long enough, you get +1 agility. It's 2-cost asset, like you say, an ally, and it has a fast action during skill test you are performing, spend 2 resources, and you're still doing that. So it's still got that effect on it, right. And he has 2 health and 3 horror soak. So similar, but different.
Yes.
Right? Valentino's fate is check the missing persons section of the campaign log. Valentino disappeared into the mist and you are on Valentino's trail. Now, to be on the trail, that was you found the clues or something to do with Valentino back in the back when you went to the Twilight Estate. Was that right?
Remember, right. So it's basically on each of these prologue investigators, there were a number of clues left on specific locations. So if we got all the clues at those specific locations, it records that we're on their trail.
Exactly. So essentially, however, I'm not sure exactly how that works, but if we've got that and we're on the trail, then we get the following. Valentino limps out of the mist, leaning on a nearby tree. He chuckles morbidly as he spots you. Cavalry finally here, eh? So you can take control of Valentino asset. He doesn't take up an ally slot, and you can record that Valentino is alive. If he was claimed by spectres...
The reverse of Agenda 1 says, in the missing persons, make a record of the character's fate. If you were defeated by the Spectral Watcher's attack, record that they were taken by the Watcher. If you were defeated by a monster's attack, you were claimed by spectres. If there was 7 or more Doom in play, and you were defeated by horror or with forced ability, you disappeared into the mist, and any other effect is you were pulled into the spectral realm. Right. So the key one here, isn't it, is claimed by spectres. So that was, the prologue investigators were defeated by a monster enemy's attack.
I see. Right.
So I guess the monster dragged them off into the mist, brought them to the unvisited isle.
Yeah. Yes. So if that's the case, then you flip this card to its enemy side and spawn it at your location. If you're on Valentino's trail, it spawns exhausted and unengaged. Otherwise, it spawns engaged with you. So this is a pretty big deal because if you don't get those clues and it was claimed by spectres, you end up with Valentino Rivas ripped asunder, 3 attack, 5 health, 4 evade. Humanoid guy, spectral, elite, hunter, and retaliate. Forced after Valentino Rivas engages you, lose 2 resources. And remember, you're by yourself. You're not, you don't have your buddies with you.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite consequential if this happens because, that could be quite nasty.
Mm.
So actually, those decisions or those outcomes way back at the beginning, when you go back to the Twilight Lodge, are quite consequential. If none of those things are the case, then Valentino's cane lies in the mud, cracked nearly in half, its handle stained with old blood. So in other words, nothing happens.
Mm.
Yep.
Okay. Next one, the one I have coming up next is Penny. So Penny's fate. Mm-hmm. So again, if she disappeared into the mist, then she runs directly into you. Her whole body shakes with panic as you hold her safe. Are you alive? She cries. Is this nightmare finally over? Take control of the set-aside Penny White story asset, and for the remainder of the scenario, she does not take up an ally slot, and record that she is alive. So her card, is the nightmare is over. She gives you +1 willpower, and if you succeed at a skill test during a revelation effect, you can exhaust her to discover a clue at your location. Yeah. If she was claimed by spectres, then you get the enemy version of her. So she's 4 fight, 5 health, 3 evade, and she's hunter. And after you successfully evade her, you have to take a damage.
Nasty.
Otherwise, you find her apron on the ground covered in blood. There's no sign of her.
Yep. Jerome Davids. Again, if you're on his trail, Jerome crawls out of the mist and you help him to his feet. My God, the mist, he whispers. It's all connected. It's all connected. He gives you a +1 to your intellect. And when an investigator at your location draws a treachery from the encounter deck, exhaust Jerome Davids and discard cards from your hand with a total of at least 2 intellect icons. Cancel that card's revelation effect. If he was claimed by spectres, then you get got Jerome David's. Sorry, that was Jerome David's in way over his head. In the Spectre one, he is Jerome David's starved for answers. He's a 4/4/4 monster hunter. Forced after Jerome David's engages you, choose and discard 2 cards from your hand. Yep.
Okay. Oh, and then the last one is you find a scrap of paper that simply says,
sorry.
"Help."
Yes. Missed that bit, yes.
The last one is Gabriella. Check the missing persons log, obviously. If she disappeared into the mist, then she stumbles out of the mist, her eyes bloodshot and her voice strained. Where am I? Who are you? So you take control of her, record that she's alive. Her subtitle is not going down that easily. You get +1 fight, and after an enemy attacks you, even if that attack was cancelled, you can exhaust Gabriella to discover a clue. If she was claimed by spectres, you get the enemy version with the subtitle "You're Next." Fight of 5, 4 health, 2 evade, and after you successfully attack her, if she's ready, you have to take a horror. Otherwise, you find her gun in the grass, decayed and broken. No other sign of her can be seen.
Yeah, right.
I quite like the way that it brings them back into the story in different ways depending on how that prologue went. Yeah, I like that. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to work out. Okay, so you found clues, and then they just sort of turn up. It's kind of hard to kind of link it.
Yeah,
any
narratively
kind of
maybe it doesn't work,
way. But it works. Yeah, it's nice.
Well, I suppose the idea is you find the clues, and that means, well, in that first scenario, basically they have to survive to there being 7 doom in play.
Yep.
So that's when they disappear into the mist, rather than being taken by the Watcher or claimed by spectres. So I guess that's the most positive outcome, is to try and get each of them, whoever you are playing, to last as long as possible. Yeah.
Yes,
if they get defeated, it's a bad thing. But if they survive to at least to round 7, then they disappeared in the mist. We have the opportunity to find them again here.
Yes.
And have recruited them as an ally to give us a bonus for some of these circle tests that we'll have upcoming.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. So we're now on Act 2A.
Yeah.
Shall I read this one?
Yeah, sure.
Fated souls, the trap set by the Silver Twilight Lodge has drawn the attention of the spectral realm and its inhabitants. I guess that's why we're seeing these people now. One way or another, those who are trapped in the mist will end up here. Okay, that's an answer to to what's going on. Each investigator cannot leave the location in front of him or her, so you're stuck here.
Yeah, I guess we probably should have read this before we looked at all of those other cards, but never mind.
Yes. So we're basically stuck here with an ally or with a monster or none.
Yes.
And you've got to get 2 clues combined. So you don't have to get clues individually, but you've got to get 2 clues per investigator to then proceed.
And all of those locations are two clue locations. So
The locations, the uninvited isle ones, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yes, they are. Exactly. So, yep. So it shouldn't be too difficult as long as you've not got a monster on you to kind of get through that. It may be likely, what do you think, that you get through that and that before the agenda flips?
Yeah, do you want to advance the act?
Yep. Shall I read the...
Yeah, sure, go on.
Okay, so... Oh, no, you should read it. It's your turn. Go ahead.
From the depths. Before long, the Revenant arrives. It rises from the depths of the Miskatonic River, unfazed by the water or the mist. Sensing fear and blood, it glides slowly toward the island with its arms outstretched. Its gaze brings dismay. Its grasp brings death. So it's the Revenant, it is the Watcher, and it is Keziah Mason. So we've got multiple names for it now. Spawn the spectral Watcher at the Miskatonic River. Shuffle each set-aside copy of the Watcher's Grasp and the Watcher's Gaze into the encounter deck along with the discard pile. Return the location in front of each investigator to the centre of play. We are no longer prevented from leaving our locations. And we put the Geist Trap location into play. If we sided with the Coven, the brazier there is already lit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we move on to the branching versions of Act 3, depending on what we were saying
Which
at the beginning.
one?
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's 4 versions here.
I'll just quickly touch on the Geist Trap.
Yes, good idea.
It says the path leading to this site is hidden by the spectral mist. You cannot enter the Geist Trap. So,
should we read the whole thing, Kevling?
Oh yes, sorry, I missed the flavour text on the name of the podcast. Above the treetops, the pillar of ghostly mist rises, covering the sky with spectral faces and desperate clawing hands. You're getting close now.
And the reverse side is
we can't go there yet, so maybe we don't read it yet. Spoilers.
Let's spoiler alert. Someone might literally be playing as we're doing the podcast, Kevling. Like, no.
But they must be insane if they're doing that.
Yes. Now, Act 3A, Beyond the Mist version 1. This is where we've sided with the Lodge, correct?
Yeah.
So this is like that. So you are close to the site of the binding ritual. You must light the braziers to find the way. Then all that is left to do is bait the Watcher into the trap and bind it there. Okay? Fast action. During a circle action, spend 1 clue. Reduce the difficulty of this skill test by 2. Did that say that on the others, or is this a new thing? It is. This is a new thing. So you can use clues to reduce the difficulty of circle actions.
Yes.
Objective: if each uninvited isle, like unvisited isle location in play is revealed and the brazier in each of them is lit, because this is the Twilight Lodge version, then you can advance. That's version 1.
Yeah. And then the other 3 have all got the same fronts. So we can cover all the fronts in one go. You're close to the site of the binding ritual. The braziers have already been lit, enabling the trap. You will have to unlight each of them in order to break the circle. And then the rest of it basically is the same. So we can spend a clue to reduce the circle action by 2, but we can't progress until we've unlit all of the unvisited isle locations braziers.
Yep.
So whatever happens, and whichever side we're at, we've got to do a circle test at all of those unvisited isle locations.
Yes.
To be able to move on.
Yeah. And it's good that they let you use the clues to do that. So
yes,
you're going to need your clues in the earlier part to get yourself into the locations, and then you get this thing where you end up separated, but then you're going to be able to use those clues later. So I guess it's probably time to look at the agenda now.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah. Do you want to take that?
Yeah. So if you flip that one after 8, or it could be less. I mean, we only had 4 because we started with 4. So it's not, you'd have to do pretty well to only have 8. But Agenda 1B says, Stolen Souls. The mist obscures the moon, plunging the woods into darkness. A flock of birds suddenly scatter from the treetops. Shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter check. Check the missing persons section of the campaign log. If at least one character was taken by the Watcher, read the following. Now, to be taken by the Watcher, is that again from that scenario at the Twilight Estate?
Yes. Taken by the Watcher means they were defeated by the Spectral Watcher itself.
Yeah. That's the missing persons, is it?
Yes.
Not us, the missing persons.
Yes.
Beyond the spectral mist, an awful scream resounds through the woods. It is distant, and though heard through a pane of glass, but distinct enough for it is real. For each character that was taken by the Watcher, place 1 resource on the Spectral Watcher as a stolen soul. Even if the Spectral Watcher is currently out of play, Until the end of the scenario, the Spectral Watcher gains the following text. For each stolen soul on the Spectral Watcher, it gets +1 fight, +1 per investigator health. Keep this card next to the agenda deck as a reminder and advance to agenda 2A. We managed to avoid that, didn't we? I can't remember why we avoided it, but
Well,
we
I suppose
did.
we only had 2 in, and I think they were both. I can't remember what they were pulled into the spectral realm on ours. Which I.
Yep.
So that's if they were defeated by any other effect. So not the Spectral Watcher, not defeated by a monster enemy, and not defeated by horror or damage when there was 7 doom. Not that it's complicated at all, this scenario. Not at all, no.
Yes. Interestingly, the Spectral Watcher, it doesn't improve the evasion or the dexterity, the foot effect or whatever.
Yeah,
so
you
you
just
can
fight
still,
and health. Yes.
you can still evade the Spectral Watcher, which most of the time you want to do anyway, right? Because you can't defeat the Spectral Watcher, right? You just,
yes, that's the one where when you defeat him, you just take him out, remove all his tokens, and exhaust him for an extra round. I think it was something like that.
Yes. And then there's just Agenda 2A. That's it.
Yeah, Agenda 2A, Crossroads of Fate. As you continue through the woods, you notice the dark mist which has permeated the island is starting to drift away from the shoreline towards the centre of the island where the beacon of spectral energy still rises into the sky. So we have 10 rounds now to deal with our objectives.
Which is not too bad. I mean, it's not too onerous, I don't think.
No.
So I guess the thing is here, either you're lighting or unlitting the the braziers. Basically, you've got the Spectral Watcher sort of flitting around trying to do your damage.
Yeah.
You've got whippoorwills. You've got all kinds of things happening. But the main thing is getting these braziers lit or unlit. Just running around doing that, which it's not too bad. We found it a bit of a pain though to try and. Because they're all connected, aren't they? The locations.
Yes, all the Invisible locations are connected to each other, and they're all connected to both the Forbidding Shore where we came from and the Geist Trap where I'm assuming we want to go to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And
So
there's some tough tests in there as well.
Yes, there are. Yes,
but like you say,
depending
at least we can hopefully grab some extra clues to make them easier, or.
Yes.
We may want to save them for future tests.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, this scenario does benefit from a larger party with more diverse skill sets, but also you get more clues, right? So
true.
You probably have more clues to sort of do things. Yeah. Whereas if you're playing it true solo, it might be pretty tough, actually, I would have thought.
Yes.
Shall I do the reverse of Act 3A? So that's
sure.
So that's if you light all of the braziers, right? So that's So that is Against the Witches, Act 3B. After nearly an hour spent searching through the dense mist, which is probably about how long you've been playing the game by now, you finally arrive at the site of the Lodge's ritual, only to find it in chaos. Members of the Silver Twilight Lodge, each wearing robes of blue and silver, are embroiled in a battle with the witches. Complete the ritual! Carl Stanford commands you from across the clearing. It's the only way! Annette turns her attention to you, shocked and angered. You again! I warned you we would not show mercy if we met a second time, she calls to her coven. Sisters, we must not let them interfere this time. Do not let their circle close. The Circle Undone. Reveal the Geist Trap location. Move each investigator at an unvisited isle location to the Geist Trap. Check the campaign log. If the witch's spell was cast, spawn the set-aside Annette Mason at the Geist Trap. That would have been from way back in the first scenario, wouldn't it? After the prologue, I would have thought.
Yes. So basically on the witching hour, if we got resolution 1 or 2, it was broken. If we got resolution 3 or 4, it was cast.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is there is just how you defeated Annette Mason, I think.
So yes, if check the campaign log, if the Witch's spell was cast, spawn a Net Mason. If the Witch's spell was broken, spawn a Coven Initiate at the Guy's Trap. 2 instead if there are 3 and 4 investigators in the game. Shuffle each remaining set-aside witch enemy into the encounter deck along with the encounter discard pile. So it's a full-on war between the witches and the Silver Twilight Lodge, and we are at the Guy's Trap. So it might be time to reveal what the Guy's Trap location does, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, okay. So that's a 4 shroud, 1 clue per investigator location. While the Spectral Watcher is at the Guy's Trap, it gains Retaliate. Ouch. It's got a circle test of willpower, it's everything, foot, fist, book, head, 20 to complete the ritual or disrupt it. If you succeed, you may either light or unlight the brazier here. Haunted effect, take a damage and a horror.
Yowzers, that is quite the test.
Yes.
And I guess at some point we'll bring the puzzle box into it as well, because that can be used for this final.
Yeah.
That was in the we picked that up from the previous scenario, didn't we? And I think it was a one-off only test that you can use to either, I think it was to evade the Watcher, deal 5 damage to it, or automatically pass a circle test, if I remember right. So that was in the previous scenario. We unlock the puzzle box by getting all of the tokens, and then we get to put it into our inventory.
That sounds right.
So I think, if I remember right, on our playthrough, we were trying to use the puzzle box to defeat the Watcher, weren't we?
Yes.
But we'll come into that on some of these other, or on the different versions of Act 4. We'll explain why we were doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall I take the version 2 of Act 3A?
Yes. Yep.
So this is the version of Act 3A where we are siding with the Coven, but we are members of the Lodge. We were inducted into the Inner Circle, but we are still deceiving them.
Mm-hmm.
So the reverse of version 2 is called Loyalty is Earned. After nearly an hour spent searching through the dense mist, you finally arrive at the site of the Lodge's ritual, only to find it in chaos. Members of the Silver Twilight Lodge, each wearing robes of blue and silver, embroiled in a battle with the witches. The ritual is near to completion, Carl Sanford yells to you from across the clearing. Bring the Revenant here and end this. It's now or never. Glaring at the man, you throw the unlit braziers you snuffed along the way onto the ground, breaking the delicate wards placed upon them. Immediately the dark mist invades, and hungry shapes in the mist descend upon the unfortunate members of the Lodge. Traitor! One yells. You try to ignore their cries of agony as you proceed toward the centre of the clearing. Reveal the Guy's Trap location. Move each investigator at an unvisited hour location to the Guy's Trap. Remove all cultist tokens from the Chaos Bag, even if they are currently sealed on cards in play, for the remainder of the campaign. And I think this is the only version of the acts that doesn't reveal extra enemies to deal with. So it's like this is the easiest option at this point, but it might have been more difficult to get to this point, to have made all of those decisions to be with the Lodge, to be deceiving them, to make it into the Inner Circle, so that you can have an easier situation here. Yeah, Guy's Trap.
Yeah. Interesting, the puzzle box allows you to unlight a brazier but not light a brazier. So it doesn't work both ways.
You can only have the puzzle box if you... No, ignore me. No, you can get the puzzle box either way, can't you? You don't have to be sided with the Lodge to get to the puzzle box. Yeah.
But it's interesting, it only allows you to unlight it. So having the puzzle box and being with the Coven is of more benefit if you want to use the puzzle box to do that.
Yes.
But it's only a one-off thing anyway. So,
Right. Yeah.
Beyond the Mist version 3, this is the one where you're sort of deceiving the Lodge, but you've sided with the Coven. And this one has got true colours. So
yeah, just
after
to
nearly
clarify,
an
sorry, on the previous one I just read, you can also you are also deceiving the Lodge, but you
Yes.
made it into the inner circle. This
Inner
one is
circle.
you deceiving them, but you didn't make it into the inner circle.
correct,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sorry, just to make it clear.
Yeah. So after nearly an hour spent searching through the dense mist, you finally arrive at the site of the Lodge's ritual, only to find in chaos members of the Silver Twilight Lodge, each wearing robes of blue and silver, are embroiled in a battle with the witches. The ritual has neared completion. Carl Sanford yells to you from across the clearing, "Bring the Revenant here and end this." Glaring at the man, you refuse. So at last you show your true colours. I thought that might be the case. The Lodge's enforcers turn on you without hesitation. So this is you've been outed
rumbled.
as a yes. What would my grandma say? Oh, the dirty dog. When someone pulled a Swiftie or something, she'd get very upset while watching a film, and she'd go, "Oh, the dirty dog." And so that's what we've done. Reveal the Geist Trap location. Everybody moves there. Spawn the set aside Lodge neophyte enemy at the Geist Trap. 2, instead, if there are 3 or 4 investigators, shuffle the remainder of the set-aside Silver Twilight Lodge encounter set into the encounter deck along with the discard pile. Check the campaign log. If Joseph is alive and well, spawn the set-aside Joseph Miger enemy at the Geist Trap, and the investigators cannot parley with Joseph Miger for the remainder of the game. So Joseph is still helping with the Lodge, and you've betrayed him and the Lodge, basically.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the worst possible one. It's like you deceived them, but you didn't deceive them well enough to make it into the inner circle. And so now, not only have you got multiple enemies to deal with there, you've also got extra enemies added into the encounter pile as well.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't mean it. Sorry, soz.
And then version 4. So this is the version where you've sided against the Lodge, but you didn't lie to them, and you didn't make it into the inner circle.
No.
So this is called Against the Lodge. After nearly an hour spent searching through the dense mist... So, sorry, no, you were against the Lodge, not you sided with the Lodge. That should be clear from that subtitle I just read out. Just ignore what I previously said. After nearly an hour spent searching through the dense mist, you finally arrive at the site, only to find it in chaos, so this is all the same. The ritual's near to completion. Carl Sanford yells to you, "Bring the Revenant here and end this." Glaring at the man, you refuse. He looks surprised for a moment and then growls, "So you are on their side after all. How disappointing." He turns to the inner circle and commands, "Kill them. Do not let them interfere." So again, we reveal the Geist Trap. We all move to the Geist Trap. The Silver Twilight Lodge set goes into the encounter deck along with the discard pile, and Joseph Miger gets spawned if he's alive and well as well. So very similar to the version 3, only without the Lodge Neophyte, basically.
Yep.
So all 3 out of those 4 all spawn extra enemies to deal with. It's only that version 2 that spawns no enemies at all and makes the chaos bag easier. So I think that's probably the one to aim for an easier ride through this campaign.
Yes, so you're in the inner circle.
And you've properly deceived them, and they've got no idea.
Right. Interesting, yeah.
Feels like that's...
Go.
With that, with the way they've structured how they all turn out, it feels like that's probably the true path through the campaign.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so then we've got 2 different versions of Act 4A, haven't we? Depending on whether which of those, whether we've sided with the Lodge or sided with the Coven. So do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, so I'll take the binding rite, which is you've sided with the Lodge. At the centre of the clearing lies a spectral trap, a pillar of ghostly energy which swirls about the stone obelisk, hundreds of phantasmal faces, and a conglomeration of rotted limbs and flesh intertwined within a revolting display of death and despair. An unlit silver brazier stands in front of the pillar, ready for you to act. So again, you can spend clues to reduce circle effects by 2, and the objective is if the spectral watcher is defeated at the Geist trap, while the brazier there is lit, advance. So you need to have lit the brazier, and you need to have the spectral watcher there, and you need to have defeated the spectral watcher.
And
Which
then
if
the
you've
other
got the puzzle
version-
box
Sorry, go on.
would make things a little bit easier.
Definitely,
That's where
yes.
you would use the puzzle box, right? You'd
Yeah.
use it there. You wouldn't use it before.
Definitely. Unless it's a blind playthrough and you think, oh, that'd be useful, I'll use that now, without realising how much more useful it would have been later on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then the other version of Act 4A, the Broken Right, the text is basically exactly the same. The only difference is whether the brazier is lit or unlit. When you get to you've got to defeat the spectral watcher at the Geist trap while the brazier is unlit. So basically, they're both. It's exactly the same objective. You've got to carry on lighting or unlighting the braziers, and then defeat the spectral watcher at the Geist trap.
Exactly. Now, if you manage to do that for the binding right, you get Disillusion. Here we go. Now we know the reason for the name. So you get Disillusion, which has this lovely picture. It's one of those ones, right? When you turn it over, it's a full, and it shows the spectral watcher / Keziah or others, and it looks like they're being sucked into a book. The watcher wails in agony as and this is where you're binding it, right? The watcher wails in agony as the shadow wreath around its form is pulled away, exposing its true form. You and the members of the lodge surround the shattered soul to prevent it from escaping R1.
And on the Broken Right, that one is Union. And it's another one, landscape artwork, very nice. It looks like a swirl of spectres escaping into the sky, it sort of looks like, As the blue flame of the brazier is snuffed out, the energy around the circle disperses. The shadow wreath around the watcher's form is released, and the creature's true form surrounds the central pillar. Resolution 4.
1 and 4.
So where was 1? Where's 2 and 3?
Well, we will find out.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking I'd missed something then.
No. It's a bit of a complicated outcome here.
Right.
So.
Okay. So do you want to start the resolutions off?
If no resolution was reached and each investigator was defeated, you barely remember sprinting back to shore and getting in your rowboat. It's as though you were possessed by a fit of madness or by a spirit bent only on survival. You can't say. You are shaken to your senses by the powerful gale which sweeps across the river, almost capsizing your boat. The spectral pillar marking the site of the lodge's ritual suddenly bursts outward. Dozens of spectres and phantasmal shapes fly across the treetops and glide across the water. You will never forget their shrieks, like hundreds of death cries sounding at once. And then you go to resolution 5. And then it says, check the campaign log and compare the following 2 columns to see which is the most true statements. Either the witch's spell was broken and or the investigators rescued Joseph or is alive and well, and or one or fewer heretics were unleashed into Arkham. So the witch's spell was broken, Joseph is alive and fewer heretics, or what's the most true? The witch's spell was cast, Joseph disappeared into the mist, and 2 or more heretics were unleashed unto Arkham. So it's one or the other, basically. Whichever one has the most true statements, if the left column, that is, Joseph is alive and not many heretics you go to number 6. And if the other one where you've got, I think that's the one we got, actually, proceed to 7. So lots of different ones.
Right.
So
Yeah, shall we keep following this thread through then?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
Do you want to read 6
Yeah.
then?
Resolution 6. When you come to your senses, the wind has subsided and the dark mist has vanished. With the ritual concluded, the island seems to have returned to normal. But was the ritual successful or did it fail? You make your way to the centre of the island to find out what happened. As you arrive, you find Annette and her coven heavily wounded, and the lodge stands victorious. Carl Sanford holds a thick leather tome in his hands, its pages glowing with arcane power. "What have you done?" Annette yells. Several members of her coven surround her. They are embattled, but you have no doubt they would lay down their life to protect their high priestess from harm. "What have I done? Why, I have cheated the devil," Sanford responds with a sinister grin. You notice the words of his tome are now glowing with a spectral radiance. Keziah signed the Black Book of Azathoth in order to learn the secrets of the universe, a fatal error in my estimation, for it put her in the clutches of one far more powerful than she. He begins to read from the pages as he explains further. She paid the price, but I shall reap the harvest. Annette clenches her jaw and turns towards you. "Listen to me. You cannot even begin to fathom the secrets this monster now possesses. You must stop him, no matter the cost." You hold your tongue, but in the back of your mind you suspect Annette is right. Sanford has tricked you. This is what he was after all along. Perhaps he considers this protecting humanity, but the truth is he has endangered the lives of others over and over again in order to serve his own greed and lust for power. However, before you can confront Sanford, he turns to the other members of his order and points to you. "This one is no longer useful," he explains. "Kill them all." "Erin, give us cover," Annette barks to the red-haired witch next to her. The witch nods in response and waves a wooden rod in front of her, creating a cloud of mist that masks your presence. "We have to get out of here. Go," Annette yells. Your escape is a blur. Robed members of the Silver Twilight cult chase you relentlessly through the forsaken woods. You are only barely able to make it back to the shore before they catch up to you. You motion for Annette and the others to join you, but she shakes her head. "We'll meet again soon." The edges of the witches' cloaks bleed into the night sky, and with a swirl of darkness they vanish one by one. In your campaign log recall, "Carl Sanford possesses the secrets of the universe." We go to Resolution 8. Which is also what happens with the other branch as well. So, do you want to take Resolution 7 then?
So Resolution 7 is like a mirror image of that. So this is 7 is where Joseph is alive, the witch's spell was broken. When you come to your senses, the wind has subsided, the dark mist has vanished. With the ritual concluded, the island seems to have returned to normal. But was the ritual successful or did it fail? You make your way to the centre of the island to find out what happened. As you arrive, you find Carl Sanford and the other members of the Order heavily wounded, and Annette and her coven stand victorious. Annette stands at the centre of the clearing, her eyes aglow with mystical power. When she speaks, it's not her voice. "Sisters, rejoice, for I am reborn," Keziah says. Carl Sanford taps you with his cane. You are so transfixed by the events occurring in front of you that you hadn't noticed the lodge members slinking towards the edges of the clearing. One of the lodge's inner circle raises a revolver and attempts to fire, but the high priestess simply glares at him, and his arm withers and rots before your eyes. His gun clatters to the ground, and he makes one final croak before he's nothing but a decayed husk on the ground. "We must leave this place at once," Sanford says stoically. "This being possesses power over life and death itself. It will not suffer our presence any longer." Annette, no, Keziah, turns her attention to you, and her eyes brighten. "You look familiar, child. Come, do not be afraid. You have nothing to fear from me." She grins wickedly. Her voice is like knives driving into your soul. You hate to admit it, but Sanford is right. You turn and flee with the rest of the lodge, hoping you are fast enough to escape the witch's magic. Your escape is a blur. Witches and spirits chase you relentlessly throughout the forsaken woods. You are only barely able to make it back to the shore before they catch up to you. Other members of the lodge are perhaps not so fortunate. Having scattered in many directions, you're not sure how many of them escaped, and you don't see Carl Sanford anywhere, though you suspect he had a plan for this outcome. In your campaign log record, Annette Mason is possessed by evil. Proceed to Resolution 8.
And then resolution 8. Let me just double check. Do any of the previous ones? Yeah, quite a few of the others will jump to Revolution 8 as well. So shall we?
Oh, do they?
Shall we take some of the other branches as well?
That's a great idea. Yes. Yep.
So,
So
what did we just start off then? No resolution was reached, didn't we?
That's right.
Right.
That
So
was
resolution 1 then. So that's if we got to the Disillusion outcome of
correct.
the campaign. Just bear with me.
That's the lodge succeeds in binding the spectral watcher.
Yep.
Or Keziah, whatever.
Okay, resolution 1. The revenant thrashes and writhes in torment, unable to escape with its connection to the spectral realm torn away. Carl Stamford steps forward, opens a thick leather tome, and the ghost's memories, along with the remainder of its form, are unceremoniously pulled into its pages. What have you done? Annette yells. Several members of her coven surround her. They are embattled, but you have no doubt they would lay down their life. This is all very similar to the other one, isn't it? What have I done? Why, I have cheated the devil, Stamford responds with a sinister grin. You notice the words of his tome are now glowing, so I think this is all the same, isn't it now?
I don't think the next bit is, 'cause it talks about Azathoth. Did it talk about that before?
It did, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
it did.
Keziah signed the Black Book.
Ah, yes, right.
Yeah, put her into clutches of one far more powerful than she. She paid the price, but I shall reap the harvest.
Right. What's an
Annette
Azathoth?
clenches her jaw, turns toward you. You cannot even begin to fathom the secrets this monster now possesses. Do you truly believe he will use this power for good? So now we've got to choose yes or no. So if we say yes, we think he is going to use it for good. You may choose this option only if we were inducted into the inner circle.
Right.
We cannot choose this option if we are deceiving the lodge. We go to resolution 2, otherwise we go to resolution 3.
Right, I see.
So do you want to take 2?
Yeah, so 2 is you're in the inner circle and you think, yes, the lodge is doing the right thing. You stand tall and declare your loyalty proudly. The other members of the order nod in affirmation. Carl Stamford will lead mankind to an era of peace and protect them from the threats of the cosmos. It may take time for society to adjust, but humanity can only survive if these secrets are in the hands of the order. The witches retreat into the woods and you are left alone with your brothers and sisters of the inner circle. You gather around your leader, and as he reads from the new creed of the Silver Twilight Order, he informs you of his plans, of the higher beings of the cosmos, of humanity's ascension, of the great old ones, of life and death, of Azathoth and the end of everything. Step by step, the Order plots the future of the Earth, and you will become instrumental in the new world order. In your campaign log record, the true work of the Silver Twilight Lodge has begun. The Silver Twilight Lodge wins the campaign. Investigators who are truly loyal to the Lodge win the camp. Oh, you just win the campaign.
We've won, yes.
So that's it?
Yes.
Hold on. So that's it. You finished there. Wow. Okay.
Interesting.
That was unexpected.
And then the other angle is if we don't think he's doing the right thing. Annette is right. Stamford tricked you. This is what he was after all along. Perhaps he considers this protecting humanity, but the truth is he's endangered the lives of others over and over again in order to serve his own greed and lust for power. You shake your head. A pity, Mr. Stamford complains. I thought you were smarter than this. You take several steps back, retreating to where the witches are gathered. Stamford turns to the other members of his order and points to you. Kill them, he commands. So this is all very similar to the other one now, isn't it?
Yes.
And Erin covers while we all escape. The escape is a blur. We'll meet again soon. And the witches vanish. So again, Carl Stamford possesses the secrets of the universe. Skip to resolution 8.
Yep.
Then, before we forget, we have resolution 4 as well. So this was with the union outcome of the scenario. Annette approaches, confronting the remnant's ethereal shell. Sister, we are the ones who have called you here from the great beyond. The shattered revenant turns its attention to Annette, and the rest of the coven watch in anticipation. What are you doing, you fool? This spirit is no mere witch, Carl Stamford yells out, but it's too late. Annette ignores Mr. Stamford, continuing to speak with the spectral presence. For years we have suffered injustice after injustice. Share with me your secret, sister. Together as one mind, body and soul, we can begin anew. The ghost reaches out to her with a long skeletal arm. Annette's sisters gasp as their high priestess steps forward and kneels before the being, offering herself. With a sudden rush of energy, the phantom's soul is drawn inside a net. She collapses to the ground, reeling from the spiritual impact. Her body writhes in torment, but none of the other witches step forward to help, instead watching with equal parts terror and fascination. Finally, Annette rises to her feet, her eyes aglow with mystical power. When she speaks, it is not her voice. Sisters, so I'll do what you did earlier, shall I? Sisters, rejoice, for I am reborn, Keziah says. Carl Sanford taps you with his cane. You were so transfixed by the events occurring in front of you that you hadn't noticed the lodge members slinking towards the edge of the clearing. One of the lodge's inner circle raises a revolver and attempts to fire, but the high priestess simply glares at him and his arm withers and rots before your eyes. His gun clatters to the ground and he makes one final croak before he's nothing but a decayed husk on the ground. This is all the same now, isn't it? We must leave this place at once. This being possesses power over life and death. It won't suffer our presence any longer. So yeah, this is all the same now. She turns her attention to you. You look familiar, but you escape. Lodge members not quite so fortunate.
Yeah.
And we record that she is possessed by evil, and then we skip to Resolution 8.
Resolution 8, when you finally return to the banks of the Miskatonic River, you take stock of the situation. If an investigator's deck contains the puzzle box, remove it. Check the missing persons section in your campaign log. If Gabriella is alive, anyone investigator can choose them and add them to his or her deck. She does not count towards the deck side. Otherwise, record that Gabriella is dead, and it's the same for the other missing persons. And then each investigator earns, equal victory.
So there we go.
Yes. Wow.
What do you reckon?
Oof. It's a hell of a scenario, really. Yeah, there's so much going on. I think it's a fun. So from a scenario, playing the scenario itself is I find it good fun actually. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is it's really from a narrative perspective, it's incredibly convoluted and complicated, but in a way that I don't think most people would care that much, because I think they would have lost the threads of wherever they end up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to remember all of that? And the problem is that it's really unlikely people would side with the Coven. They're much more likely to end up with the Twilight Lodge. And amazingly, you can end up winning the whole game before you finish the final two scenarios, which is kind of surprising given that then you would have two more scenarios arriving 2 months. Because in those days, you got scenarios turning up but you would have sort of won. So you'd have to kind of start again.
It's kind of like you've won as the bad guys, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. The other thing is that the other interesting thing is that there's no good outcome here. Both of them are negative, right? You've either got Carl Sanford, who's sort of this sort of all powerful individual, or you've got like Keziah Mason possessing a witch and sort of so you've got evil happening, whatever the outcome is. There's no good outcome. Yeah. Although bizarrely, that winning one sounds like it's a really good outcome. So it's really all over the place from that perspective.
Yeah, I guess it's a spin on some of the previous campaigns where you probably get to this point and you can completely lose the campaign and it's over.
Yeah,
and you don't get to play the last two. It's a sort of a bit of a spin on that, isn't it? You've won as the bad guys.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, the narrative complexity doesn't equal the payoff. It's just complex, needlessly complex. But I think most people will have forgotten all of the shenanigans that went on earlier. So, yeah.
I guess as well,
I think it's narratively.
It also echoes back a little bit to the Forgotten Age, where throughout the campaign you're either siding with Alejandro or Ichtaka. Yes. And they've both got their own plans for what you're finding. So there's some similarities there to some degree, having the two sides.
Yes. Yes.
I agree. It's quite a convoluted, particularly as you're trying to piece your way through these resolutions. But at the same time, I do like how it does factor in everything you've done so far. But there's only so much of that you can do before it becomes complicated and clunky, which I think this is kind of just tipping over there, isn't it, onto that sort of, a little bit convoluted, a little bit messy.
Yes. Yeah.
A little overly complex, I think,
Yeah. I think if it had been a clearer path between you're in the coven and you're kind of going down that path, or you're with the lodge and you're kind of heading down that path, or you're staying neutral and you kind of and you're going down that path. But it's sort of all lodge with a little bit of coven.
Yes.
And then you're either really in with the lodge or you're kind of not. You know what I mean? It's
or
sort
pretending you're in with the lodge, or pretending you're in with the lodge but not very well.
Yes.
Yeah. It is a little bit one-sided the way the narrative seems to go. And like you say, there's no... There doesn't seem to be any reason to side with the witches. It doesn't give you that much, unless we missed stroke forgotten something.
No, so it's not giving you a lot of reason to side with the witches, and they haven't been given much to go down. It just suddenly gives you this choice. You can side with the witches or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think they were kind of forced to do that because otherwise it would have... Yeah, so it feels like something got lost along the way when they were putting this campaign together, where maybe there was more witch interaction at some stage or something.
And
something
maybe
like that.
It's me oversimplifying things, but even if they just couch that decision into you're either siding with the Twilight Lodge or you're not siding with the Twilight Lodge, rather than to word it that you are siding with the Coven when you haven't really got any reason to.
Yes.
I think just that little narrative tweak might have helped a little bit, maybe.
I completely agree, because then it's a sort of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of idea. You're not with the lodge, therefore by default you're working with the coven because you've got a vested interest in doing that kind of thing. Would have been a better way to catch it. I think you're right. The other thing I have to say is I agree that bringing back the people from the prologue is nice, but it feels like a bit of a sort of a shoehorned into the scenario. You know what I mean? It feels like it's just been sort of tacked in or tacked on, rather than it sort of being really central to this scenario. It just feels like it's just added in, it's like, oh, we better use those people again, or we better tie up their loose ends or something,
And again, I like how this sort of tied in with what happened to them does affect how you encounter them again, whether they're an ally, whether they're an enemy, or you just find a shred of evidence on the floor. But it is, like you say, it is kind of inconsequential. I suppose it's a way of getting some extra support for some of those difficult circle tests. So I guess it's a mechanic for helping you out. But again, the chances of them having survived that, or survived long enough in that initial scenario, is fairly slim. And it's is it the Return to that introduces a way of randomly determining the outcome of that prologue rather than you having to play it a second time? They added something in, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
Because it didn't go down well with the community having to play that almost fixed scenario.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But overall, it's a good scenario, but it's surrounded by overcomplication to try and bring all the narrative threads together, I think.
It is. And I don't think the narrative... I mean, complicated narratives can actually be a good thing, but I don't think the complexity particularly enhances this experience of this scenario.
No.
I don't think. It's a great scenario to play. I guess my other question is, Kevling, would the campaign be stronger if the Covenant had more backstory and development, do you think?
Probably, yeah. It'd give you more... I can't think of the words. There's more sort of reason to make that decision to side with the Coven. We don't like we've said a few times now, it's you're kind of siding with them without any more out of not wanting to side with the lodge, rather than it's an absence of a. I can't think. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah,
Yes,
it's like
I know
there's no
exactly.
You're only siding with the coven because you don't want to side with the lodge, not because you
lodge.
want to side with the coven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that would have been good. I guess the problem is that the law that sits behind this is inherently very negative about witches, like they are inherently evil.
Right.
You know, they are. You know what I mean? And so I suppose they're trying to kind of give them something, but not detract from the original. It's very kind of it's a very confused campaign from that perspective. I know in the notes they talk about, you know, witches, the idea of witches and the idea of sort of evil women being witches is problematic.
Yes.
You know, there's a problematic aspect to that. But I don't feel this campaign I think it really struggles to kind of land on exactly, because it's still that the lodge weirdly still comes out as the more positive side of things. You can literally win the game by being in the lodge's inner circle.
Well, huge win in inverted commas there. Yeah.
Commas. Yeah. Whereas you can't do that with the coven. You can't sort of become more enmeshed with the coven in some way. So I think the campaign could have been either you just have one, it's the lodge, and everything else is evil, so it's just about that, or you kind of a bit like the Forgotten Age, you have much more of a balance. But this just feels, I think it feels.
I guess what they were trying to get at is to move away from the completely binary choice of siding with the lodge or siding with the coven.
Yes.
But you're siding with the lodge, but you're not really with the lodge, and you're lying about your motives,
Yes.
and it adds the little nuances into how things pan out.
Yes.
But it does. So I do like that, and I think that's a really clever touch.
Yes.
But it does make things complicated, having all of these different acts and agendas and things. And if you did this and then that, and all these sort of, it's almost like a flow chart of how how everything plays out.
Exactly, and it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out in the next, because there's still 2 scenarios to go, right? So
it feels like this is the penultimate, doesn't it? Usually that's the sort of thing. Everything comes together on the next to last one. All of your decisions matter. Now let's move into the final scenario, but we've got 2 to go.
Exactly, and again, it leaves you not knowing what's going to happen next. You know what I mean? There's no hint as to what's going to, you know what I mean? There's no, we've got no idea. It doesn't give you any forward momentum at all, which is very, common in this particular campaign. So we'd be left to see, I guess, next time, Kevling, where things end up. So,
yes. So it's, what's it? In the clutches of chaos we are next. So I suppose that's kind of where we're left. We're left in chaos. Either Carl Sanford has got the secrets of the universe, or Annette Mason. I forgot how do they word it. Annette is possessed by evil. So all of that convoluted decision making, and we've still come down to a binary option. Yeah, yes. Twilight Lodge. They've either won the campaign, or they've got the secrets of the universe, or Annette Mason is possessed by evil.
Yes. And what is an Azathoth? We still don't know the answer to that. But I guess we might find out in the next 2 scenarios with any luck.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
So, yeah, great. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And indeed, next time, Kevling and I will be in the clutches of chaos, and very much look forward to that. I guess, I don't know, Christmas might interfere with our timings a little bit.
Yeah, normally we sort of every 2 weeks we do something. We either do the playthrough, and then 2 weeks later we'll do the. I mean, it might fall either side, but yeah, we'll work it out.
Exactly. So apologies to any listeners out there who we might be taking us a little bit of time to get through this campaign. We're getting through it as fast as we can, and we're not far off the end now. Where the end is in sight. So,
Or the end could already have happened if we'd sided with the Silver Twilight Lodge.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're finished. We don't need to record anymore.
Yeah, that's right. All done. Yay. So thanks very much, everyone, and we will no doubt see you next time. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8.
And I'm Kevling.
See you later. Bye.
Bye. So once more, thank you for listening. We're on all the major podcast platforms, so please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. If you have any feedback for us, you can email us on ftextpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram and Threads at ftextpodcast. So on behalf of CrabbyTerror8 and myself, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.